Suppose now, you and I, you are my enemy. Yeah. This is exactly the context.
Exactly.
And in this context, I said, you know what, to everyone here, he will never come in this park again because I know, I have been told by my God, you being my enemy, to try to disprove me, you find every opportunity possible. Exactly. Your reputation, for example, and my reputation, you'll say, you come back tomorrow, the next week, and so on, and say, look, I'm here. Because it's disprovable. My statement, my claim, proposition is disprovable. But what if all your life you've never ever stepped to speaker's corner, then there's something truth in my claim. How did I know that? I wasn't forcing you.
Right? What would you say to someone who says, who created the transformer?
Yeah, that's why we're getting here. Ultimately, we have a transformer that always has to exist. So the question of who created the one who always was there is not a meaningful question anymore. Because by our logic, that originator, that transformer, has to always be there. Always be there means no origination point, no beginning point, not a point when it's created.
Could you perhaps say that that question is answered by faith? Because if we have to accept that it's always been there, we have to have faith that it's always been there.
Nothing to do with faith.
We cannot understand the creator of the transformer.
Nothing to do with faith. It's to do with rationality and logic, reason. So once we accept, there has to be always something there. That's something what we call is beginningless, meaning it is there always. That's what it means, always there. You say, look, he was there always. If he is created, then something has to be there always before him.
Okay, so we've still come up with a concept to describe the beginning. Okay.
Beginningless.
Beginningless
Transform.
beginning, right? So what would you say about the idea that that's still a human concept we've created in our mind? What about the idea that we just can't conceptualize?
What you're saying is now we're getting an explanation even though we have a reasonable explanation.
Our explanation has a start point of there always being something there, right?
No, it's not. It's an inference. That inference has a good explanatory power. When we see someone stabbing someone, I'm not going to invoke green butterflies or some kind of pink elephants doing that by holding his hand, right? Because we have a good explanation from this. It's a human being who's in control who's doing that. Whether he's mad or whatever, that's a different thing. I don't need to invoke it. When we are something, there has to be something always. I may not know what that something is, but the reality is, if something is, for example, infinite, it's not finite. And if something is finite, it's not infinite. We've accepted that also by logical extension. We've said this is how we operate. If we're now going to have total breakdown of logic, then everything goes.
Well, it seems as though we've applied a logic to try and answer the beginningless beginning. But that is a logic that we've chosen and applied. We
haven't gone outside yet. We haven't gone outside. Still using something inside. Remember? I have not invoked anything in external laws and principles and logic from outside the world.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, that's why we say any discussions like this to be meaningful, we have to be really sticking to our reality. And this is what the reality leads us to believe or infer. Forget the word belief, infer. So inference that something always exists brings up more questions now. If something exists always, that existence, what we say, is uncaused, because there's nothing else to cause it. An uncaused existence is not limited in any way and shape for its existence. It exists by itself. So it's called inherent existence, independent existence.
Is that not a belief system?
Inference.
There is an inherent system.
No, this is a belief.
Isn't it?
Let's avoid the word belief. Let's avoid the word belief. It's a loaded term.
Don't you have to believe that inference is the correct one?
No, not avoid the word belief, because belief, often people take it very loaded. It's like, oh, you believe in something without any evidence and so on. But we're not dealing with this kind of blind faith. We're dealing with logic and inference. And that's why, even though is all part of everyone's belief system, but I don't want to use the word belief because of the load behavior of this particular one.
In other words, it's intuitive. It's something that you know that's basically true. So what you're saying here is no one's asking you to make a paradigm shift outside of the rationale. That would be an impossible thing to do.
My point is, it's a particular rationale that you're applying to the question.
What other rationale is there? If you deny, let me put it this way: if you deny the law of non-contradiction, what other rationality can you invoke in order to make sense of truth claims?
So my perspective is, I'm not denying any law of non-contradiction. I'm simply saying,
There's a possibility other than that.
what about the conceptualization that we simply cannot conceive of the answers to these questions?
that's
Because
meaningless.
We're trying to. So it is meaningless in a way.
Not only is it meaningless, it's actually self-defeating.
Then that's premised upon the purpose that we must be here for a meaning. How do we know we're here for any meaning or purpose at all?
If you
What
take
if
that
everything is
route-
meaningless?
if
We
you
don't
take-
know. What if we can't
Sam,
conceptualize anything?
Good question. If you take that route, we have to get rid of forensic science altogether. We have to get rid of evidence
We don't,
in establishing
because
crime
certain
altogether.
things we can, if I drop a stone, I know it will hit the ground. But the
Pink
the
elephant's
logic
doing
and
it.
rationalities we're applying in this
Who's doing that? Who's
theoretical
doing that? Pink
realm
elephants.
is extreme.
Invisible pink elephants taking that stone down on the ground.
I don't know.
I say that's pink elephants, invisible.
No, but no.
Why do we stop?
This I don't know, right? This I don't know that you keep invoking. I mean, is this I don't know something about which nothing can be said? Or is it something?
Potentially, we just cannot conceive of the answer, and like maybe we can, and maybe therefore we can conceive of the answer, and maybe therefore there is an answer, and maybe therefore that's why we're all having these debates and discussions. But maybe we simply can't,
Can I give an
or at least
example?
can't right
Can I
now
give an
until the
example?
future, right?
You know about inductive and deductive method. Let's not go into jargon. There is a room there, and 4 of us here. I'm including you, my brother. We went in this room. One by one, people came out. So I came out, he comes out, and he comes out of this room. For all the outsiders, because no one went in this room before, who's left inside the room? I'm out. You're out. You're out.
So we're inferring that I'm left inside the room.
How can we infer that? In what possible reason are you using here that I'm inferring that you're inside it?
So the inference is based upon the fact.
Maybe you can't conceive.
The inference is based upon the idea that we knew there were 4 people in the room to begin with. So we've had a logical basis that we've created. That's our foundation. But what if we don't know that foundation?
And the same is true for the law of non-contradiction. You can't get anything more basic than that. That's what Mansur is trying to put across to you. If you let go of the law of non-contradiction, no matter what anyone says, the opposite can be true, and it turns into an absurdity.
Okay.
So in other words, the rational basis for truth has to be that you have to presuppose the law of non-contradiction.
Do you know there are certain
if you
axioms?
reject that,
And
everything.
I see where you're coming from, and I see that there's a potential, like, I'm not against presupposing the law of non-contradiction, but I just
no,
think.
you can't even make that statement without
using rationality and logic.
exactly.
But my perspective
point.
is.
That's why he said it's self-defeating. Because you just simply thinking about it and reasoning with it,
You know what
being rational.
Do
in
you
your head,
presuppose-
you're already using what you're
Do you
saying
presuppose
might
you
not
exist? Do you presuppose you exist, first of all, to answer that any question?
Do I presuppose I exist? Yeah.
Exactly. So is that reasonable to presuppose that?
Because it's obvious. You don't need anything more basic.
Like in the definition we have of what existence means, yes.
Because if you're going to answer the question like, I think this is correct or not correct, we can't confuse, you're already presupposing that you exist. So if I were to ask, justify your presupposition that you exist. So that's why you come to the point of, look, there are certain things we take it for granted, or known as axioms. Okay? In maths, in science, we do that all that. Otherwise, nothing would work. Like we say, this universe can be understood rationally. If we did not have that axiomatically this presupposition, then scientific experimentation is meaningless. Because we might just do experiments and we just say pink elephants, invisible pink elephants, and blue turtles, whatever, right?
There's nothing that's impossible. Everything is possible.
Yeah. So
In that
so I
paradigm.
suppose what I was curious about is you essentially take a position that we can understand the universe rationally, and I think there's the alternative argument would be maybe we can't. But let's say we can, because I can definitely see where you're coming from, and I think there's a lot of things that I can agree with, right? So let's say we can presuppose that we can analyse the universe rationally, even though I believe there may be a possibility that we cannot, which I think where we're disagreeing over. Now we've taken that basis, where do we go from there?
I want to know, because I don't want to just agree only on common grounds. We want to explore where we disagree. Where do you think it's possible that everything is possible? As my brother here said. When there's no logical basis of anything, like maybe the sun rises from the west tomorrow, maybe the earth spins the other way tomorrow, for example. Maybe now, it's November now, maybe tomorrow it's going to be March.
A new month. 13th month.
Yeah. So you see, these things. Maybe when you leave a stone now, it no longer goes in there; it just floats in the air. So, if we are now going to have all these maybe possibilities, I want to know your justification for invoking this kind of understanding.
Which kind of understanding?
That everything is possible. Maybe there's something else like.
I don't necessarily believe that everything's possible. I think I just don't know what's possible.
Yeah. How do we know things? It's based on our previous experience of things, right?
Okay.
Yeah? So we've seen, for example, that even in maths, if you define something as finite, it cannot be infinite. Because by that definition, it operates within that rules operates within. You cannot have an infinite rules applying on a finite object and so on and so forth. So when we say something and nothing, we know something comes from something. It cannot come from nothingness. And it has to now, with that understanding, something always exists. If something always exists, it means it's beginningless. There cannot be a beginning to something, because that means at one point there was nothing.
I definitely see your point there, and I agree with it largely. I think I just find it challenging to conceptualize the idea of
I agree.
that there must have always been
I
existence,
agree,
which
and
to
that's
me,
why.
which to me is where the point of we have faith that is.
No, that's
is-
why it's a submission upon knowledge, not submission on blind faith. Submission, like when I know, for example, I am not all powerful, I cannot fly, I have to submit to my limitation
So,
of that.
Would you say that your argument is that we're submitting to the fact that we know that that's true, even though we can't fully understand it? Is that
I am not invoking blind faith, but I'm submitting to the conclusion and the inferences that it brings in my investigation.
So I definitely agree and can understand that your logic. So it's very difficult to comprehend in our minds, right? The idea.
It's not impossible to comprehend. In fact,
Well, the idea that like if
when
something's always existed,
Sam,
what's the cause of that?
when we say in a
What's
logical
the cause
look,
of the thing that's always existed?
think about it.
But just asking that question is meaningless. Why are you asking what caused the thing
by
that always
definition,
existed?
it was uncaused.
You can't ask that
Okay,
question.
and I see where
Let's
you're
break it
coming
down.
from.
Should we break it down?
Let me break it down.
Break it down.
But there's
Because
one
you're
thing
jumping
that-
ahead. Like,
there's-
what is
it's just
what
that
is
he
like
asked
the
the
square
question.
root
If I
of
may just make
3.51?
one point.
You're giving me your answer.
If I
But
may
with our
just-
friend Sam,
And
we break it
I'm
down.
genuinely curious, by the way. I actually don't disagree with a lot of what they say. But you said you cannot ask this question. That's one thing I dislike. I think you should be able to ask anything.
Let's break it down. Hold on.
Yeah.
It's
The question.
meaningless.
Let's explain why it's
explain,
meaningless, right?
explain.
Let's explain
Yeah,
why
yeah.
it's meaningless.
explain
That's
why
what
it's-
you're asking.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
So look, part of the obvious intuitive truths that we know about is the present moment in time. We existing at this present moment. Right? Would you agree that we wouldn't have been able to reach this present moment without a past?
Yes,
And before that, a past before the past?
yes. And I see there's a logical, infinitely, there's a beginningless beginning, right? Because there's a point at the very, very start.
Now that's what we're arguing against. And this is
So
where the
you're
brother
arguing
is
that
saying
the nature of infinity is that there's always been existence.
the nature of infinity is that an actual infinite cannot exist in the world.
No beginning, no end.
So let's break that down. If we recognize the present to be obvious, and we know we wouldn't have been able to reach the present without a past cause, we can take that as a properly basic way of questioning the world, or reaching correct conclusions regarding the world. Saying I don't know, or saying we might be able to come up with an excuse other than that in the future, or some explanation other than that, is meaningless. Because the sum total of not just your existence, my existence, or anyone else's existence, the entirety of mankind has it, that causes are necessarily required from the past to reach the present. So we can take that as a very, very strong, obvious
So isn't that based on the
axiom.
premise of the linearity of time?
Yes.
So if we remove the linearity of time,
But why
don't
would
we
we?
enter...
But why would we remove it, Sam? When the sum total of science, the sum total of existence itself tells us that time is linear.
Because
We don't, for instance, we don't see Sam's father succeeding Sam before Sam is born, do we?
So absolutely, I definitely see your point. So we've taken the linearity of time, and therefore you can go infinitely backwards and infinitely forwards.
No, you can't go infinitely forward. So you have two options now. Either the number of causes that brought us to the present moment is infinite, or it has a beginning. If it's infinite, have you heard of the, I'm going to cut to the chases, have you heard of infinite regress?
Fallacy.
I know about it roughly, but I'm not an expert.
Okay, no problem.
Right?
It's
I've had it.
an idea which has it that if you recognize the causes that take place one after another in time, linearly, to reach the present moment, if the universe has been eternal, there is an infinite number of causes extending back into the eternal past. Now think about this. And I'm not asking you to do a paradigm shift outside your rationality. We're all of us confined by the rational. That's the only way we can understand existence. If there are an infinite number of causes, if I go back, what's the biggest number? Googleian or
Googleplex.
Googleplex? That's the one. If you go back, Mansur knows everything. When you go back a Googleplex amount, and you say, okay, let's start from here, the answer is you can't start from there because there's still an infinite number of causes that need to be traversed. If these causes occur one after another, the present, say t minus 1 relying upon t minus 2 cause, t minus 2 relying upon t minus 3, all the way to the infinite beginning.
Too complicated. You make it
He
wants to hand it to someone.
So this is an object that needs to go to your hand.
Yeah.
said, please.
From my hand, right?
I want to listen. I'm really interested.
No,
Mansur's gonna give you
same
a
analogy, then you can go back. Perfect, go back.
I'm following you.
No, go back. Because we can mathematically, -1, -2, you can go probably over my hand. I know.
I was
You come back.
enjoying this.
So this is an object that needs to go to your hand, right? So from my hand to your hand, okay?
I'm the first cause. You're the present. I'm cause just before you, and he's the cause just before
Somewhere
you.
in the past, right? Okay. So if there are infinite number of people between you and me, infinite, remember. So before he comes to you, goes to his hands, goes to his hands, goes to his hands, and it goes infinite number of people. Now remember, there are infinite number of people. So he's still passing hands. Would it ever reach your hand?
Over an infinite time period, yes.
No, not
But
time
over
period.
a finite time period,
Imagine
no.
no time period.
Listen to what he said.
Infinite number of people.
in infinite
Okay,
time.
no, fine, no. Well,
You said it yourself. Infinite
no,
is never
okay,
ending.
no.
Yeah.
So many of these religions.
See, this is something I find interesting because I have devoutly religious friends on both sides, let's say Christianity and Islam, and they're both, having read a number of historical texts and spent years of their life researching it, they're both entirely convinced that the source of their religion is the transmissibly correct one. They're both entirely
That's a
believe.
belief claim.
And
What's the
yeah,
evidence?
But
can they
gone
back it
into-
up is the question. That's
Yeah,
why he
and-
said
and
that.
they- and they've
That's
both
how you
gone
filter
into-
it, by looking into
And
it.
they've both gone into the historical documentation, right? But they've reached different conclusions. So
let's
is there like a
explain-
text that you would say,
explore.
if you read this will give you the true
See,
understanding?
that's why Mansur is telling you how to assess it yourself.
So which,
Because if you just hear it from us, I wouldn't say just take it from ours. Like trust us.
So which
That's not
body
a
of
good
information?
criteria.
But which-
If somebody is trustworthy
May you
and
interrupt.
they
Oh,
tell
no.
you about God, that person could be trustworthy but wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is
So-
why my question was
Exactly.
going to
That's
be.
why I said
Wouldn't
you
really
look at
help.
it yourself.
So my question was going to be, which body of information would you point
So
me
let's
to?
explore this then, okay? So I'll come back to the concept of God, which is very important. In fact, he says, and I agree with him, that is actually a good filter to begin with. Concept of God to begin with. If a concept of God is God that is present, let's recognize Christianity and Islam as the concept of God. Because I think this should take precedence over the transmission history. Even if it's transmitted correctly with the wrong concept of God.
That's false.
Yeah? Okay. God is one as we have understood from our
Yeah,
rational
I'm
inquiry.
there with you on that. I see your theorization on that. So I'm up to that point. So what's the body of information that I should go and explore to decide between
So
the
if a
Abrahamic
religion
faiths,
says,
let's
if a
say?
religion
That's the wrong
says
question.
God is one, but he is
What's
one.
the tool that I need to? What are the
Well, the
tools
tool is
that I
information.
Rationale.
The tool is information.
I would start with a logic
Precise-
handbook.
There you go.
Number
It's
one.
Precisely,
A logic handbook.
precisely the same tools that we use in order to reach the conclusion that there is only one source to the universe.
So let's say it's the
Extend
fundamental
that.
tenets of logic and information,
Yes,
right?
extend that to other religions.
Let's say I'm with you on what we're in agreement, let's say, for example, on the fundamental tenets of logic. Okay, so now the next part is information. So which
Assessing
information would you point me
Yeah.
towards?
So when we
come
look at
to this
information, from this information,
Just
we look
say the
at
Quran and
patterns
call
of
it a
this
day.
information, which gives us some meaning. And that pattern we're looking at the concept of God, concept of you, concept of your
Yeah, it's not
existence,
answering the
and
question.
your next existence if there is any. Right? You and the link of you and the Creator. That's what we're looking at, essentially. What does it tell me about it? So start with the concept of God that it presents. Is he going to talk about a flying pink elephant, invisible, with purple tail that has created? Is that the picture it's giving? Yeah. So what we are saying is, the Christian people, they say the concept of God, in their orthodoxy, the overall majority, that this God is expressed in three persons. One God in three persons.
Fine, brother, it's fine.
Oh, smile
It's all
more.
good.
Person of the Father, person of the Son, and person of the Holy
Genghis,
Spirit.
how are you?
There are three persons, but one God. Each person has fullness of divinity. Each person is God. So the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God, as they say, right? And they are not three gods, but one God. That's the presentation. But to me, what I would say is, from the very outset, that's totally incoherent. Why?
No, it's not.
If you have a person who is the fullness of divinity,
Yeah.
and that's one God, and another one is also fullness of divinity, that's one God,
Yeah.
but distinct from this one,
Yeah.
then that's not one God, that's two gods.
No, it's not. It's
Because
one.
when we
There's
make
one
this,
essence.
if I have, let me show you clearly.
What about this one
Sam,
concept?
Sam.
Logic.
I
What about
want
this one
to share
concept
this. It's
then?
important.
Let's say the one. Let's
Even
say
Allah
these
is
three
one
brains
God.
are like
One God.
perfectly in sync, and they're really
One
just
God
one
that
brain in
attributes
three
one God to
parts.
have.
Then that's
and
just
all
one person.
perfectly-
That's just one
yeah.
person, but they say it's three.
No, yes. Three
If
persons.
they all have the same mind and they're all thinking the same thing, then they're not really.
My Allah-
So correct me
Three
if I'm wrong,
persons.
but as far as my understanding
logic
goes,
is
is
that
that they
my
say
hands are
these
part of
three
me.
are
Allah's
one
hand
God.
But Sam,
No, but-
we can break this down.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
do
yeah.
you not say that?
To be, I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know why we went into Christianity, to be honest. But
Logic is this. My hands are part of me.
What
Allah's
makes
hands are
him
part of him.
distinct from you?
Okay. So,
Does it not?
so I have a picture.
oh no, oh no, the duckinity, man. No,
Now,
no.
what I'm going to
I don't know
present
how
to
we
you,
got here.
what I'm going to present to you, maybe you tell me whether I'm justified. If I say, look, even though the brown duck is different from the white duck and different from this mixed color duck, they share the same essence of duckness.
Yes,
No, that's not the same.
They share
exactly the
what
same.
what
don't know
makes a
anything.
duck
No,
duck
son.
is the duckness. It's
that'll
the
be
essence
different.
of
Okay,
duck
can I
nature.
present to you an idea that I'm just curious about?
Universal
right?
and particular.
So let's say that they all have three different brains, right? But
as
let's
are
say
you.
they're essentially all
Huh?
synchronized.
Might be.
And those are really three parts of the same brain, just across three different bodies. Is it then just one person in
I will
three different
explain,
bodies?
and
And
I-
therefore, could you argue?
I will
One
answer that
rational
question.
faculty.
I'll explore that.
No, the answer is no. The answer is no.
Okay, so you say the answer is yes, and you say
No,
the
no,
answer is
one person
One person
is still one mind at the end of the
So
day.
you're saying
you are
if you have
familiar
three
with
persons-
universals of
Yeah, go on.
And one consciousness being shared by those three persons.
No, but that's the whole.
Is it
But
one person?
no, but the
or
problem
three
is you
persons?
can't say it's three persons with one consciousness because they all think the same. So it's one.
Hypothetically,
Either way, in the Bible it goes against this idea of one consciousness anyway.
We will
I'm just
explain.
curious
You don't
'cause
even know what he said.
We'll
Yeah, I
explain.
do.
We'll explain.
I mean, this document
Let-
is
You don't know what he
Use
said.
You
the
don't
same
even know what he
duck
just said.
They have the same essence of a duck.
Well,
Same essence of a duck. Because
exactly,
what
stay
makes a
quiet.
duck is a
I
duck.
could if you guys
Nature
were
of a
coherent,
duck
but that's fine.
All
is
right.
what makes a duck duck. That is not a potato, and that isn't an umbrella,
Yeah,
and
but
this is not chicken.
They're not
It's
the
a duck.
fullness of what it
Right.
means to be a duck.
This
Oh my
duck
God,
has
yes,
the
they are.
fullness of
They're
what
each
makes a duck a
ducks.
duck.
No, they're
Because
not,
they have the
my
same
friend.
nature of a
The
duck.
fullness of
Yeah.
what it means to be a duck
So
is something called a
each
universal.
shares
For example,
the
you
nature
are a
of a
human
duck.
being.
I might
If I
fall
say
over
that's
that.
one duck,
You are a human being.
am I justified
If I
to say
say
that's one
human
duck?
being, that was meant to you. You are an
Upon
instance
this
of
premise,
humanity.
no.
Exactly.
Whereas the three persons
Even
are
though they have the
directly
same
equal to the
nature,
other. They're all
because there are
instances of it.
distinction
That's
between them, that's three ducks. Just like Sam, Hamza, and Mansur.
It's not, my friends.
We have what we call the nature of
Yeah, but Allah doesn't
human,
know everything
human
either.
nature.
So
You have
Allah
human
knows
nature.
no history.
You have human nature. I have
He
human
doesn't know
nature.
anything. He doesn't know
So we
history.
share the
A
human
lot of
nature,
things that people
but
will
we're not one
crucify
human.
people in the
How many
time of
humans are we?
Pharaoh.
Three
That's wrong,
humans.
historically.
In the Christian concept of
Allah
God, this is
said
where
that-
they
so,
do not use
Allah
the same
said
logic that we are
Pharaoh
using.
says that he
They
will
say
crucify Moses.
this is not
Well,
appropriate.
the
Father,
Christian
Son, and the Holy
exists in the time
Spirit,
of Moses. So
even though they're the same
God has
nature,
no history.
and the distinction between them, they are the
Sorry?
same God.
I am
But they're not the same God. They're
Do
three
they,
gods.
do they say that they are distinct from one another?
Yes.
Yeah.
They say
How are they distinct?
because the Father is not the Son.
Explicitly too.
We'll tell you.
Allah
They say
doesn't know-
that the
Allah knows
Son
less than Christ.
is begotten through the
Allah
Father,
doesn't have no history.
and the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Son and from the Father.
Therefore, they could not be one.
Therefore, they
Yeah.
cannot,
And
the
the
Father
Father
can never
What
be
a
the
marsh
Son, and
Arab.
the
It's
Son
not
cannot
the
be
Son.
the Holy Spirit. It's an ancient.
The belief makes them one is called modalism. It's a heresy the Christian rejects. It makes sense like it's only one, but presenting himself sometimes as brown, sometimes as what. But that's not in reality in Christianity.
All this comes down to is a concept of language.
Yeah, that's what I told you to ignore them.
Whilst they recognize that there are three separate
Exactly,
existences,
agree. Well, what does
the
he
Father,
have to do? Exactly.
the Son, two,
It can be effective.
the Holy Spirit, three.
No, he's not doing
They say that
intention.
this is God,
Just
but they use God as
Just like
though
marsh Arab
God,
do.
the term, exists
Well,
out there in the real world.
history proves
When it
that
doesn't.
marsh
But
Arabs
they
have been making gold and
accept that
houses
these
on water
three are different.
for thousands of
They
years.
fully
So, no,
accept
they're the
it.
same
There
thing.
has to be a
Heresy.
distinction.
And I see now that your
So this is why
your
Islam says
conceptual
Viking
philosophy
boat,
that it
my
could not
friend.
possibly be
It
correct
was
is
likely
because
one made of
due to the
tack
logic we explored
and
earlier,
straw.
there's only possibly one power.
there you go. There you go.
Okay, I
I'll
see.
give you-
That's
I'll
interesting.
give you a-
That's why the Quran says
That's interesting.
Slight spice about it. The Quran talks about that God is only one and only, unique, absolute,
and tells the Christians
and not born, not begotten.
The Bible
Doesn't
does
give
too,
birth.
to say three.
Yeah, and tells the people, all people of the Scripture, come to a close, common ground between
Yes,
us
but
and you. That we don't associate
it's a name and an
God
attribute. It's
with
the
God,
asma wa
and we don't
sifat.
say
The
three.
names and attributes.
Resist is
It's two
better
things.
because there's only one God.
Well, but they are.
With the example you gave earlier, what if like this three person with the same kind of mind and so on and so forth?
The inheritor.
This is also problematic. Imagine that that's three of us, right? We share the same knowledge and everything, power, knowledge, and everything. Okay? Now, I have everything that I need to be divine in that example, right?
No, but Allah
So I'm going to say that
is the
I'm
owner
absolute,
and the
right?
inheritor.
I'm going to have a plan in my head. I'm going to keep a secret from you and you. Can I do that?
No.
Right.
So I fail to keep it secret. So I fail to do that. So now you are showing my limitation. So if you say I'm not able to keep it secret, then I am not fully
I see, and
able.
then it goes back to the A and B example.
Exactly. It goes back to that very same
I see your
example.
perspective. It's very interesting. It's cool because
That-
it's hard
that-
to it's hard to refute.
it's intuitive as well.
Yeah.
Hinduism, I don't need to go into that because everything under the sun is a god for them. So we can find out that
not accurate either.
it is easy to use this very basic understanding of logic to literally discount all these religions out there claiming to be true
But wait
as
a
being
second.
false.
Allah appears as a man.
See?
So how
So-
can you discount Islam as
Islam,
well?
therefore, when it speaks about the truth and it says that the prophets and messengers that came to the people over a
Yes,
long
Baldy.
period of time, they would
My
have
bald eagle, how
taught
can I help
exactly the same message.
You know what?
That
You're
there
an
is
American bald eagle.
The
That's
source,
where we're
God,
from now on.
and there is the creation,
Mashallah, my
and never
American
shall the
bald
two meet.
Oh,
They will
sorry.
forever be
the bald
separate.
eagle actually has hair. My bad.
And so if
Sorry.
you recognize
also
there
has
is a
a brain,
being
like some
that
people.
brought us into existence, the obvious conclusion ought to be that we submit ourselves to this being.
I don't like
And there's a
when
way of
people
doing
go
that.
to their elders.
And Mansur has
I don't like when people are fat.
Okay,
given,
so
give an idea of how
I'm
to
with
do
you
that.
up until the point, and you use the term submit. So why specifically is submission the correct approach?
But he's videoing.
Because you need to show the
No, please,
relationship
tell-
which is
tell- tell
the
my-
most
my
correct
board ego.
relationship. Because if someone has created you, originated you, then you are fully dependent on that.
So it's almost a sign of respect.
Busted.
So submission is an acknowledgement of yourself to the one who has brought you into existence.
you're
So that
breaking
acknowledgement
your
is based
wish to
on love
record.
and
How
hope
Islamic of you.
and of fear of not being in the what's it called, the paradigm
Yeah, right. So
of
what, you can watch
because
that
I don't want
movie?
to do something and then be in a loss. I don't want to be in a displeasure. So if I have been created for a purpose, I want to make sure I'm fulfilling that purpose. So that's how we balance it: love, fear, and hope. But in some religion, it's all about love. Some religion is all about fear, and so on and so forth.
Like Islam, right?
So the concept of God, I hope, is clear, even though it was just one example of monotheistic understanding. When we come to our transmission history, because they came much, much earlier, so you can ask a Christian later, not now to the hecklers,
I'm right here, by the way. You can ask me. Or you
can ask a
can ask
Christian.
the liar.
if,
Yeah.
for example, Jesus Christ received direct revelation from
Sure, he did. Yeah,
the
why not?
Father, do we have the exact verbatim revelation that
Close
he
enough.
received? Exact verbatim
Why
direct
do we need the
revelation he
exact
received
Admitting it.
that is now present with us today.
Even with Islam,
The
you
answer-
don't have
the
exact
answer-
words of Allah
The
or
answer
Muhammad, or even
is
the Prophet.
no.
Or
Why?
As he said, no enough.
The answer is
Yeah,
no.
no.
And the reason why it's no, because when we look at now the available claims of this revelation, they have watered it down to saying there is no
Wait,
direct
so why
revelation.
does Allah quote the Bible
They,
and the Quran?
they,
then,
they
if the
do
words
not
aren't
have
exact?
direct revelation. Are you feeling cold? Do you want my jacket?
No, it's okay.
Because I'm feeling warm.
Should we get closer?
That's not accurate.
Huddle up, guys.
The ducks do it.
They claim they have what called inspired revelation of words, not
Like
direct
you
speech,
Muslims
right?
do. It's the same
So,
thing.
so when we now
Muhammad
say,
was
okay,
inspired
so
by Allah and Jibreel.
let's give it some kind of like, maybe we can examine it. So when we look at the inspired claims, so we look at so-called good news that he preached.
Yeah.
Let me name you some good news that is so-called
Well, the
inspired.
good news is
The
coming
Gospel of
the kingdom
St.
God.
Thomas. Oops, it's not in the Bible.
Gospel of Thomas is
Gospel
not.
of infancy, gospel. Gospel of Mary.
These
Gospel
are
of
all
Judas.
Quranic
Gospel of
inspirations.
Philip.
They're not actual
Gospel
gospels.
of Thomas. Many, many others.
Yeah,
so
that the Quran
now
borrows from.
we
Well, the
find
Quran
there's so
borrows from
many
them.
claims
That's why the Quran's wrong.
which says these are what Jesus received
That's what
from
the Quran
God.
takes from.
Okay.
So Christians accept some, reject others.
Just like you guys
so
accept
now
some
we
surahs
have
and others.
a
What's the big deal?
problem already. Which ones are the received revelation?
The ones that come from the apostles.
Is it the one which says, you know what, let me give you an example of the one which they consider to be inspired. It says, look, as far as many people have undertaken, it seemed good to me also, but having investigated and being there at the beginning,
That's the prologue.
that I should also write something to my good friend Abdullah, so that you may know the things what happened. Now, if this is what I'm claiming, am I actually telling you that I am giving you the direct inspired words of God? Or
Well,
I am
that's better than telling me to
working
marry my own
as a
cousin.
historian,
That's from
I'm
God.
saying many people, brother Muhammad and Hamid or Muhammad is brother Hamza, they're writing, and
But the
it
Quran
seems good
tells
to
you
me also
like
to write.
leave Muhammad's house because
That's
he's
the
too
beginning
shy.
of
Like,
Gospel
is
of
that
Luke,
from
by
God?
the way. I'm paraphrasing.
Okay.
So if someone, the author himself, says, this is what I'm presenting to you, how can you even say this is a claim that I'm
Because it's
giving
a
you the
prologue.
inspired words of God? Because he's
all.
telling us that he is not. He's rather writing like Abdullah and Muhammad is writing and Hamza is writing. He's also writing. Yeah? Because it seems good to him.
So this is disproving certain gospels of Christianity, right?
But
So
doesn't this
Claims,
prove anything?
claims,
Claims.
revelations.
so
You are now asking a question, how do I know the information gives us truth value, right? I was just giving you the mechanism of transmission of the information.
So let's just for a second say that we agree with the mechanism of transmission. Therefore, we agree that the
Excellent
Prophet,
point.
just for the sake of it, let's say we agree that the Prophet's words
Yeah.
are correctly translated as is in the Quran. How do we know that the Prophet's original words are the word that was fed from God?
Excellent, excellent. So now we need to know what are there in these words that demonstrates that this is of the divine origin. Essentially, that's what it is.
No, how do you know that?
How do we know the words
divine lies.
exemplify the divine truth and evidence of the divine source for it?
Because
So the Quran gives it in various ways. One of that this is information that can only, and the way to disprove that is a human composition. If Sam wrote something and wrote it in English, though Muhammad can read your words you're writing in English. Particular structure in writing form. If you're writing poetry or prose or of it, then this follows grammar, syntax, semantics, right? All of this part of the language.
Best is unique.
If he has learned English, he would have access to the same level of these things, right? So he should be able to imitate it. And that's why today we can imitate Shakespeare. That's why today we can say the letters of Paul in the New Testament, some of them they identified to be forgery, but even though they thought it was Paul's letter, that it looks so much similar, but at least now we can see it still didn't 100% match.
So your point is that lexicographically nothing can imitate the Quran? Is
So
that
we'll
the
come back to
point
this
that you're
point.
making?
I'll come back to the
Because
point.
don't other holy
And I'll
books
explain to you about the
imitate?
challenge of it. But what we're saying is the Quran provides one type of falsification test. There are other falsification tests. This falsification test is such that the Quran came to a particular people at a time when they composed their literature in a specific form, right? These forms, they call it bihar, the poetry like seas, this is Arabic word, right? The scholars of that language types. Al-Madid, and so on.
How do we know they don't like 17 and they just missed them?
Scholarship, I've exhausted the categories, and
Can
these
you
are the only
name somebody
categories.
who's done that, by the
So
way?
these are for hundreds of years of scholarship of the Arabic language,
And they're what, different
independent
methodologies of writing?
independent of where you're from and so on. So that's what is a anonymous agreement
Has anybody
of
who is an
Arabic,
Arabic looked at this,
linguist,
by the way, and
of a
confirmed
language
this
So you're saying there's 16, just to be so I
16
understand,
types.
16 types of
Poetry.
Arabic linguistic.
of poetry.
Okay.
So when they composed it, it falls in one of these like ألا ليت بشعري هل أبيتن
by the
ليلة,
way,
for
Christian
example, this
poetry
starts,
as
right?
well?
Or like نبكي من ذكرى
Or only
حبيب
pagan
ومنزل,
poetry.
a particular way, right? How it ends with a rhyme, what forms. So it's a whole science called the علم العروض.
I'm following.
Good. So the Quran came to them, challenging them that it's not anything like what you are producing. It's a unique genre. Produce something
So
like it.
just because something's written in a particular unique way at the time that's different to the other 16 prevailing methods of writing at the time doesn't necessarily make it true.
Why can it not be imitated is the question I'm asking you. First
Yeah,
of
that's the
Because it's
question.
all. The
unique.
question is now, the composition is
There are
such that
lies that can
incapacitates
imitate
people from imitating it. To give you an example why this is so relevant to the truth claim. Can you see a building
Okay,
over
so
there?
you're saying that
Sam,
because nobody else could write in the same manner as that which was written
it's
at
not
the
because
time.
of that. I will explain to you with an analogy. Can you see that building over there? The big building?
Yeah.
With lots of windows and lots of floors? Imagine you're an architect and I'm an architect. I say, you know what? The building that I've made, no one can make my like building. No one can make like the building that I've made. Impossible. I challenge you to make something like it. He said, I'm an architect. We went to the same school, right? We had the same class and we graduated and we got our certificates and degrees and so on. I'm practicing, you're practicing. I can make exactly what you can, okay? So I say, okay, come on, have a look at my building. So you go to that building and closely inspect it. Every single brick is floating in space from every other brick. No brick is touching another brick. So the whole building is like that. And I say, Go on, make a building like mine. Would you be able to, as an architect?
Okay, no. However, I don't think you can liken a floating building to a methodology of lexicon in ancient Arabic.
I will tell you why this is so much like it. So, why would you? Why would you? I will give you. Well, let's understand the analogy first. Why would you not be able to make it? Same bricks. You have the access to same bricks.
That's not an analogy that's applicable to ancient lexicon in Arabic.
No. I will tell you where the link is. But first, let's understand. You have the bricks, and I have the bricks, and I made it like that. Why can you not make it?
Because we can't have floating brick. I cannot
arrange it like the one I have arranged it. Why can you not arrange it like mine?
I cannot build a building with floating bricks. That's not something I can do. But I don't think that's applicable.
Do you see the composition? Now, the problem is here. I'm asking you use the same bricks to compose it like it.
I see your analogy.
The reason why there's some extra elements in there that are preventing you from using the bricks, arranging in the same way that I have done, and make it like that.
So you're saying just because nobody at the time could write in the same manner as this
not at that time.
Even now.
I'm challenging you even now.
Up to
Go and
now,
ask
they
any
cannot.
architect to bring like mine.
Just to add
Isn't
context.
any holy book written in the same manner? Just with different
No
perspectives
way.
and
We're
beliefs?
talking about the uniqueness of the Quran.
So, okay, fine. Let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase my question. What about its writing is entirely unreproducible?
So
because
the
its
Quran,
ideas, you could say,
that's what I was about to explain to you, son.
That's what he was trying to tell you.
Explain to you. So the Quran came to a particular time period where people thought this is their best achievement, right? Best achievement, language, mastery, perfection. The Quran says, you know this individual, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is unlettered, who has not learned the arts of poetry or writing, and now he's giving you this. If you think it's a man-made product, he copied it, forged it, you should be able to do something better than that, rather than simply
Isn't better
imitating it.
subjective?
Or similar to it, right? Or even similar.
That's still subjective.
Similar. So what we're saying is, the way it was composed is where the challenge is. If I were to write something like the 16 types of poetry, and I'm only restricted in my abilities to compose poetry like that, I can't compose poetry in a way that I don't have anything to imagine about.
So that's the presupposition that you have
No,
those
not
16
presupposition.
limitations at the time, but that's not to say that somebody couldn't come along and create 17.
Yes. So let them imitate that style, number 17, which the Quran came. The Quran came exactly the different style. So what's stopping people from imitating that style?
That's why he said you have the exact same bricks, but you can't build it.
So let's
You
break it
already
down.
know
Okay,
the
so
style
let's
now,
break it
but you
down.
still can't imitate
Let's
it. That's
break
what he's
it
trying to
down.
tell you.
The Quran is a selection of ideas and principles. Could we say that in a certain way?
You could say
So therefore, isn't another collection of ideas and principles upon the same idea that there is historical backing for it from ancient times, an imitation of that book? Therefore, we can imitate it just in a
You're
different
conflating two
similar way.
things. I'm not talking about the contents. I'm talking about composition.
The stylistics, the linguistics.
Without looking at the contents. So what you're dealing with about the contents themselves. I am on this point so far only dealing with the composition without the contents. What the contents is. Is it talking about be good or be nice? Or is it talking about no, nothing about the contents yet. Only the composition of it, arrangements of letters and words,
So I'm
placement
following.
of it. So I am saying, if I say, look, even an equation like this, you can't bring an equation. What the symbols means. Yeah? What the symbols means is another level of scrutiny. So when we go to that level of scrutiny, let's deal with that. Okay, first, they cannot compose exactly what the Quran came up in the form of composition. People are failing today. Why they're failing when people should be able to match is something that they cannot understand and grasp. What we say, we do understand and grasp because God has made it like that in a composition where people will fail to imitate it. Okay, that's a hallmark of the divine origin of the Quran. Contents-wise,
the imitation is you're saying
Falsification.
that there's no lexicographical imitation of that style of writing from that period of time. So that's what we're saying. Okay, so then fine. I can't refute that because I'm assuming it's true,
Just
right?
to add some context,
But that
sorry,
doesn't make
I
it-
don't know if
it
Mansur
true.
mentioned it,
Have a look at
but one other
His
thing,
lectures.
you don't have to take
You've got your 3
my word for it,
lectures,
you can look
a
this up.
3-part one.
But it was
It's
also
really good.
at that time, it was the epitome of Arab poetry.
and think about
So these are people who
Okay.
literally
Not
live
even
their lives
poetry,
doing
just
this.
the
think about the
language.
challenge, Sam.
The language itself was at its peak at that time anyway.
But
So
think about the
but
challenge.
That doesn't mean that a savant can't come along and further the subject and
No, but-
further the area.
No,
and
but
come
no
up
one
with
said
something.
no one said it's, that's.
Think
we're
about-
just saying that's when it came as well. It's not like over time people got better at Arabic and they still
Now let's-
can't be.
brothers, let's
It
give
was
him the
already at
context.
epitome
Yeah.
anyway.
Let's give him the context so he
Go on.
appreciates
Go on.
how it is that they failed and they failed miserably.
Yeah, miserable, exactly.
If these group of people known as the poets in Arabia, who were the equivalent of the celebrities today, right? Poetry was their life. They breathed it. They lived it. They wrote poems, love poems in regards to it. They even went to war over it, or encouraged people to go to war against their other tribes, and so on and so forth. If these people had reached as they believe, the apex of the Arabic language,
Let me add some
Through
little
poetry.
spice of this and continue. Hold on to your thought. If you read their poetry about love, about description of a woman, you'll fall in love with her. If you read the description about inciting you to war, you'll get ready. Where's my sword? Where's my gun? Start
that's
war.
how deeply
That's
affected
the
by it.
power of their rhetoric. This is
As
how
in,
they.
it's
This is
so
how they
persuasive and it can
excel.
move you
Emotionally.
emotionally.
Okay,
Emotions they were trying
so
to show.
your argument would therefore be that if I read this book, the Quran, then I will believe because it's so powerful.
That's not what we're saying.
Let me just break out. Let me just
break it down,
the
break it
argument.
down.
Let me break it
What we're
down.
saying is, this is how
And I
they were
follow-
mastered this
Yeah.
craft of
I'm just
language,
getting into-
linguistics.
yeah.
And you're
The
saying
skills
that
of
this
oratory.
book that was created was more masterful than anything else
No,
at the time.
what
Understand?
it
Think about
brought-
we're trying to give you the historical
Backdrop.
backdrop for this challenge. If you appreciate the fact that the Arabs, in their arrogance, believed that there was a group of poets who had mastered the language, and they believed that no one could come along and challenge them, let alone a man who was an illiterate, who wasn't known for his poetry. Suddenly this man comes along claiming to be a prophet of God, and he comes with composition, he comes with a book that is composed in a way which is challenging them directly. It's not just challenging their mastery of the Arabic language, it's challenging the very foundations of their way of life. It's saying that Islam is a truth and your pagan polytheistic religion is false. Now, the Quran is now laying down a challenge. It's essentially saying, putting all of its eggs into one basket. It's saying the challenge of the Quran lives and dies by this claim that you, the poets, will not be able to match what the Quran has brought.
When you have all the ability to do so.
When you have all the means, the knowledge
Okay.
that you claim you have to do so.
What has it brought that's unmatchable?
No, putting that aside, I'm trying to get you to see the historical understanding here.
Okay.
Now, the leaders of Arabia, they have at their disposal these poets, and these poets consider themselves to be the best. No one's better than them, right? A man comes along and says, okay, you claim this, well, I'm coming with the truth from God. The truth is claiming that your religion is false, and it's also challenging you to try and find fault in regards to the truth claim. One of the ways it's doing this is by challenging the poets and saying, this is something that you poets, no matter how long you come together and collude, you will not be able to come up with a composition that is better than that. Now, we're not speaking about the how here. We're speaking about whether they actually could have achieved it. If it was achievable, it would have made sense for the poets to go away and say, that's easy. Here's a poet, Prophet Muhammad, it's more eloquent. Do you know how many poets came
Isn't
before?
eloquence subjective? And what if, let's say...
You're missing the point. You're missing the
dealing
point
with
here.
eloquence, yeah.
It has nothing to do with the eloquence. It's to do with
You use the term eloquent.
no, eloquence in the sense that the poets are being challenged. Now all they have to do is meet the challenge.
Eloquence in
Right?
the sense that
All
you're
the
being-
poets have to do is meet the
eloquence
challenge.
means.
Why didn't the poets try and meet the challenge just that once?
Because they
Why
thought it
didn't
was
they even write something and say, look, we've we've
wasn't
spent
worth
10
your time.
years. Let's give it to him and see what he thinks. Maybe the leaders, maybe the people who read our
Okay.
poetry in comparison
So-
to his.
so your
Let me
argument
finish. Maybe the people will read our poetry and consider ours more eloquent, whatever that is, whatever the criteria is, more eloquent than the Quran. You know how many times they did that? Not the once. The
Because
leaders
it
of
wasn't worth
Arabia
their
told the
time.
poets, go away and do this, and they couldn't do it. So
Okay.
this is a proof,
How
therefore,
do we know that's true?
that they chose to do the more difficult thing, which was, rather than do that which was in their capacity to be able to do, which they couldn't do, they went to war. They placed themselves and their children and their wives at harm's way, rather than do the easiest thing, which was in their power to do. It's like me.
What do you mean they went to war?
They fought.
They wanted to
fought.
forcibly
Yeah.
destroy
Muslims.
what he brought.
Okay. So,
Can you name one?
Okay, sorry, can I just say something, Sam? Do you know, I'll point you to a direction that will help you understand this whole concept of what's special about the Quran, why they couldn't imitate it and so on. Brother Mansur has a 3-part lecture on YouTube. No, I'm not even joking. It's really good. No, it's really good. It's really good.
No.
Because it obviously helps if you know the Arabic language, but he breaks it down a little bit easier for people who don't speak Arabic. So you can actually see it, and trust me, you will learn a lot from it.
so
A
let's
lot.
say it's the most eloquent book and it's unimitatable, and therefore many people believe in it. And as a result, the Arabian poets at the time cannot create something that persuades people away from it, right? Okay, so
Remember what the claim was. Quran claims it's from God and says this is how you
Yeah.
can disprove this claim by offering falsification tests. And if the people cannot falsify it, then the claim that it's from God still stands.
Okay.
And the challenge still stands to falsify
that's
it.
upon the basis that we assume it's true to begin with. What if we assume it's false and say
The
prove it's true to me?
truth claim is being demonstrated by offering falsification tests. As we do in science, if you are an economist and you write a paper and says, this is my model, this is how you can falsify it. And if they can falsify it, then that's it.
But you can falsify it just by saying, well,
Well, why didn't they, Sam?
I don't
Why
believe
didn't,
in it. Well,
Sam, why
because-
didn't the
because-
best of the Arabs, at least try,
because
let
perhaps-
alone
here's why.
produce something?
Perhaps it was the most eloquent and persuasive book of the time. Therefore, let's say whomever wrote it, the Prophet Muhammad, if
In
it
fact,
wasn't directly from Allah, let's say he was just far more intelligent and persuasive than all the other poets at the time.
As in literally?
It's okay, it's possible, yeah.
Let's say this, or let's say the fact that he was illiterate is historically indisputable. Let's say that somebody somewhere, in a way that's not historically documented, used him as a scapegoat and wrote this book. Then all of a sudden, it's just more eloquent and better at persuading people than anything else at the time. That doesn't make it necessarily inherently true.
Was he the only person on planet Earth ever to be lived with that genius and no one else could imitate it?
I don't know. I'm just saying. At
No,
the
I'm
time,
asking, hypothetical, it's a question that I'm asking in return as a pushback.
Okay.
If he is now considered to be a genius who's produced this kind of piece of
Whoever
information,
produced it, because I
Yeah.
truly don't know.
let's say he's brought about this piece because he is genius. If that was the case, being genius is not exclusive to one person in history ever, all in human history.
Some people are more capable and impressive than others. So
There
maybe
are-
it's just one of the most impressive humans in history.
So if he claims to be and demonstrates to be truthful, we accept him as being truthful, he's honest, he's reliable, he's upright, he's a good economist, good social, scientist. The only thing that we just disagree with, he's not a prophet of God. That tells us, like, why are we being selective and accepting for everything apart from this one claim? That's why we say, look, so we understand his claims, and the Quran offers multiple layers of falsification test for exactly that matter. That could it be by chance from a genius and so on, right? So why is he, for example, saying things which you will say that is so risky if he was an imposter? Because an imposter would not risk his reputation.
Well, how do you know what he says is true? That's what.
There's a chapter in the Quran, Surah Ar-Rum, the Romans, chapter 30, Surah 30. It talks about how, look, the Romans have been defeated in the nearest land, but they soon should again be victorious in a period of bid'a sinin, 3 to 9 years of time. So this piece of information, let's understand what it says. The Prophet is telling them, the Romans have been defeated. they can go and check that they're defeated because it's Roman in the nearest land. So historical event that has occurred in a big thing between the fighting between the Persians and the Romans is a big thing, two superpowers of the day. Okay. But what it says then is, but soon they will, now they've been defeated, but they will then be victorious, and it gives you a number of time. If two superpowers are fighting, how can you predict, we're talking about prediction now, that within this time frame, they'll be victorious again?
I
Risky.
can answer that.
Historically,
They were fighting for over 20 years.
exactly that's
and
what
they had
happened.
multiple times
Historically,
on either
there have been
one of the
before
sides.
all this
So
different
it
fights,
was predictable at that point.
but if you look at it now historically, that's exactly how. And that time, they even had bets between certain individuals. Yeah. So if we find someone who has no need to make a prediction like this, is unnecessary for you to
Because it goes
claim.
against you.
Look, because it's risky. Remember,
Yeah.
when someone is making truth claim and they're not true prophet, for example, of God, there's an imposter, fake individual, you would avoid all of this kind of risky business. Because that's the risky, it will jeopardize all your claims that you make if it turned out to be that it didn't happen that way. Another example, the Quran in a chapter, towards the very end of the Quran, it talks about this person called Abu Lahab. That Abu Lahab and his wife, they both will burn in hellfire. These individuals heard this because the Quran is recited in public, right? At least in Fajr, in Maghrib, in Isha, and various other times. When this was recited, Abu Lahab would have known, right? So why would Abu Lahab, not even as a hypocrite, come along and say in public, I believe,
Or his wife.
I testify that there is no God worthy of worship, and Muhammad is the messenger of God.
Beings make choices, and not all of them are completely understandable.
But
by
here's
other
the
human
point though,
beings.
here's the point
That's
though.
just the nature of humanity.
To disprove the Quran, he had an opportunity. A golden opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if he says, I believe and accept, I declare, then he's a Muslim.
Yeah.
So you're not going to
You
hellfire.
you have to appreciate the fact that Abu Lahab
He
and his wife
had-
hated
Yeah.
Islam.
Okay,
He
so
had
that-
more than
that's
10
like,
years to live. 10 years of opportunity to disprove Islam.
So it's an
That-
example
that
of
wouldn't
someone who was
disprove Islam.
persuaded by a text, but it doesn't mean that that text
No,
is
no,
the
no, you're missing the
fundamental
entire
truth.
point.
This is a falsification test when the Quran offered, which could have been easily falsified by that individual and his wife by becoming a Muslim and falsifying that, no, I'm going to now go to your Islamic heaven because I believe, right? But because you say, I will go with my wife in heaven, I have disproved it by becoming a Muslim.
No, you
I'm not
haven't,
sure I'm
because
entirely
you
following.
say-
Just, I don't think I
Because
understand
maybe
what
you
you're
could-
saying.
This is a prophecy, right, in the Quran, essentially.
but you just
It's
said it
prophesizing that he will never enter Islam, the fold of Islam, right? So what Mansur was saying is that essentially he had 10 years to just say, I believe in Allah and that you're his messenger. That's all he had to say.
Isn't that a catch-22?
No, no, it's so risky. I would never say he's never going to say
Let's
this.
break it down. Sam,
Unfortunately, I do think that's a
I will
a
give
little
it,
bit
make
of
it easier. Sam,
trap.
Sam,
It basically is.
Catch-22
Sam,
is a trap.
I'll explain to
anyone can say they
you.
were
Suppose I said, Sam will never, ever in his life come to Speaker's Corner again. Okay? Never, never again.
That's not the same thing.
If I
as
make such a
believing in
claim,
religion.
if I make a claim like this,
Well, okay.
is it disprovable?
Yeah.
Yeah, by coming up the next day or the next
Exactly.
Sunday.
How would you
But
prove
what if I
But,
said?
but what if? Because I said to you, like, this is my challenge to you, Sam. I know that you will never ever come because I have information from the divine that you will never come to
It will
Speaker's
never
Corner.
happen.
same thing?
You suppose
I don't think it's this. I
no,
don't
no,
think
no.
it is
Suppose
the same.
we'll explain to you. I will give you the analogy, but let's understand your. Let's no, he is, brother. Please. He is. He is. He is listening. He's been listening all this time attentively.
Yes.
We have to really appreciate and thank you for this. Okay? I know. Don't be impatient. Please, brother, don't get involved.
Honestly.
Suppose now you and I, you are my enemy. This is exactly the context.
Exactly.
And in this context, I said, you know what? To everyone here, he will never come in this park again because I know, I have been told by my God. Yeah. You being my enemy, to try to disprove me, will find every opportunity possible. Your reputation, for example, and my reputation. You'll say, you come back tomorrow, the next week, and so on, and say, look, I'm here. Because it's disprovable. My statement, my claim, proposition is disprovable. But what if all your life you've never ever stepped to Speaker's Corner, then there's something truth in my claim. How did I know that? I wasn't forcing you.
By the way, sir, I have a feeling
let me finish.
I go and say what you were.
Yeah.
What was on your
I
mind?
guess
Say what was on your mind.
so essentially he's saying, look, I'm telling you because my book is correct, my beliefs are correct, that you will never ever convert to Islam in the next 10 years, right?
Yeah, it's a
and
prophecy.
he never did it. He never converted.
did.
But isn't that a catch-22 in the sense of if he doesn't believe in Islam,
I said even as a hypocrite.
why would he
Yeah,
ever?
You know what I said?
So even if he lied,
check this
so
out.
he didn't even lie about it.
You know the Speaker's
He
Corner
might just sit there
example.
and say, no, I don't ever
Sam,
want
Sam,
to
check
say
this out.
that.
Check this out. Check this
And
out.
that
You're
doesn't
missing.
mean that Islam
Yeah,
is
but
Sam, you're
even
missing
more
the underlying
so.
point.
But you have
No,
to
it doesn't.
understand the
Because,
context,
Sam,
as he said,
Sam.
he's his enemy.
Yeah.
So Abu Lahab was completely against the Prophet, peace be upon him.
principle that he will never go against something he does not believe in. So if he doesn't believe in Islam, he would never proclaim himself to be a Muslim, even to prove somebody wrong, because he believes in his inherent core
What if he
principles,
knew-
as opposed to hypocritically proving somebody wrong. That's entirely possible, and it doesn't mean that the Quran is inherently true.
Okay, so Sam, think about the alternative here. Think about the alternative. If a person has the ability to disprove someone using a very, very easy methodology, but he chooses the far more difficult way of doing something,
Because he
how
might be
would that-
principled, and
No,
he
but-
might never want to.
No. Principled
to
in what
understand
way?
the context. Go on.
In the sense that he's willing to place himself and his family and his entire community and his
For his
civilization.
principles,
Okay, so why would the Prophet himself now place all his eggs into one basket
Because he's so smart.
once again and present this to not just one man but also his wife as well?
Because he's a gambler.
How is this man, Prophet Muhammad, who's claiming that I am the messenger of God, I'm receiving revelation from the one who has knowledge of all things? What would be the reason behind him choosing to do this?
Because I think it's an intelligent catch-22 if you know enough about the person to make that.
Okay, so think about the probabilistic factor here. He's not just saying one man, he's saying that his wife is also doing this. He then goes ahead and says something about the people of the Romans. So he's constantly going about laying down these very
They're not
difficult
intricate.
ways
They're very
of
easy to look through.
very, I should say,
Like, for
easy ways
example,
of
I can say
falsifying
that
Islam.
the Ukrainians
Why would he
lost
do
the
that
battle, but they'll
if
win
he
next
wasn't
one?
absolutely sure that the chances of those things being fulfilled are absolutely impossible?
He was sure enough.
Falsification was
Absolutely
easy,
impossible.
but he's choosing all this is unnecessary, risky methods when
They're not that risky.
he didn't have to. So, for example, instead, say he was a very principled man, Abu Lahab, right? Very principled, and that's why he didn't want to. This is not one isolated case, as he's saying. The Quran has so many, like says, you did not know this before. Now he's now telling his whole community, the information I'm giving you, you did not know this before. Now, how is he convinced that no one knows about this?
Well, there's a
Someone,
reason that they tell him that
like,
in the
how can I say
Revelation,
that you
all
don't
he's
know
getting is
about
just
something
tales of the ancients.
when you
So
could be
actually,
the
the
professor
Quran
teaching this
disproves that.
subject for the last 30 years, for example? I cannot be confidently in my position to make such a claim. The Quran is making claims like this over and over again, saying you did not know this before, this is what will happen, prophecies, predictions. When we
Yeah,
examine
but how do we
holistically,
know the Quran
this is what the
correct in
Quran
those
provides.
notions?
So
It could be
one
wrong.
thing is someone
Maybe
said,
they
like,
did
I'm
know.
taking your point, like, okay, the next level, like, he's genius and he's making educated guesses and they all came true.
They did all come through.
Possibility, right? I've heard people saying that, but think about it. Even guessworks in probabilistic theories, there's a limit to what is possible by,
So
and probable by
essentially,
guess.
the argument is that the probability that this book is the word of God is high because of
A
all the
cumulative,
things that
a
he-
cumulative
So
case
it's
of
like
all
a
the things
No,
brought
pro-
together.
like a mathematical
evidence-
equation, essentially.
The evidence
You argue
from
approaches
maths,
one.
evidence from maths,
Okay.
evidence from science, evidence from statistics, evidence from sociology, all the cumulative
How do you
evidence
mathematically prove
shows
this from God? How's
that
that
this
work?
is not a product of someone who is just an ordinary person,
That's
but
not
rather
true, because it
who
literally
is
does,
recipient
because all the
of
stories are borrowed from other
knowledge
books.
outside the human domain, outside the community domain, outside.
He doesn't want to be. Like I said, he doesn't want to. Doesn't want to be recorded. He doesn't want to be
This
recorded.
guy's been recording him the entire time.
He doesn't want to be recorded.
But this
So-
guy's recording him.
He's recording us.
So what we're saying, when we examine the Quran
He's been recording
holistically,
him for the last
that's the
52
picture it
minutes.
brings.
Damn.
So, say for example, as a guesswork,
Bald eagle,
the
man. Come on.
probability or chance of something getting it right is 50-50 for one thing, right? Like,
Okay.
to guess your name, whether it's something like that, I have a 50-50, I could be wrong or I could be right.
I follow your perspective, and
So-
I'd have to read on it more.
So
And
that's
I'm
what
not
we're
entirely convinced,
excellent.
but-
No. What we've done is exactly what you've just demonstrated. We have at least convinced you, as you said, to read a bit more.
Yeah.
That's all.
You definitely have convinced me to read more
That's
about
it.
it. And I think that, like the thing that I do definitely find hard to refute is the monotheistic idea, the idea that if there was A and B, one must destroy the other. I'm following your paths. The latest bit doesn't entirely convince me because I don't think it directly links for me enough sufficiently yet to entire truth that it must be
If the
God, but I will
information-
look into it.
Yeah, what if the information content now, about talking about the contents, could not have been known then with
How would
the...
you prove that?
To give you an example,
How would you prove that?
how do we know, okay, what's a mountain? Describe me a mountain.
Tall geographical feature moving out, sticking out from the ground.
Elevation of the ground.
Yes. Keep it simple.
What is it tell you not to lie, by the way?
If I tell you,
Mountains do not
mountains,
absorb shocks from earthquakes. They don't do that.
if
That's a
the
lie.
mountains are described
That's a lie.
that they have roots,
Japan
They're
has
like
many
Pegs.
mountains.
Pegs. Yeah.
all mountainous range, what you see on the surface like a tip of the iceberg, most of it is actually underground.
Yes, because
Did
they-
you,
they
or did
form
I,
from
or did the
place.
Prophet, or his people dig the ground to find out the mountains have roots?
Maybe
You don't have the
just-
technology.
maybe
You
he
need sonar.
theorized it
You need,
based on-
you need so.
How would you theorize it?
Well, like, so Einstein theorized
Maybe
it
he
to
did.
relativity.
We're talking about people in the desert,
Okay.
illiterate.
Sure.
So what?
Okay.
Think about it in that perspective.
Brother, let
Just
me
because
take
you're
his
illiterate
criticism and
Yeah.
I'm responding accordingly.
Just because you're illiterate doesn't mean you're not intellectual. and
Yeah,
that you cannot be
So he
curious
guessed
and
it again.
theorize things.
So again, he theorized by guesswork
And-
because
and
it's not
maybe-
observable.
Maybe he didn't come up with everything himself, right?
Or maybe just
Where
there
did he
were
get it
other
from?
people.
The other people don't know about this thing.
But maybe they theorized
maybe
it
the
too.
Greeks do.
Yeah. So now we're looking at the evidence is not there,
I
and we
definitely
have it
see
from.
your point that probabilistically what I'm saying appears unlikely based on what you're saying. I recognise
So
that
the
point.
more and more evidence, the more and more examples, we give, then it becomes clear that the information he provides, which is not known to him or to his community
How do we
or the
know that?
bigger community around, because
do
we
we
don't
know
have anything from them.
How do we know that?
We don't. It's
Exactly.
the evidence
Funny how,
is
question
there.
from Christian.
If we have evidence like, oh,
Nothing.
if I told you like, oh, people in the past, they knew how to build iPhone 18. They have all that technology. I can make a claim that he's trying to make. I can make a claim, but what is the evidence for it?
Yes,
there are no
like your entire
evidence.
religion.
There are
What's your
no
evidence for anything you
evidence
just said?
that people had that technology.
Your
They didn't have an
evidence
evidence
is
to
people
make
memorize this.
superconductors and submarines or electronic microscopes or telescopes. They didn't. But if the Quran provides information which seems to be only accessible through these tools, then you have to now
There's
explain
nothing the Quran
how
provides that's accessible
you need
to
sonars to
an
understand
iPhone.
the
Everything
the
the Quran
mountains have
provides
roots
was
like
known
that.
at the time.
Sonars didn't exist with
Nothing
technology.
new.
The Quran talks about for example,
It's a
we can
lie.
talk
The waves in the
had-
ocean. The waves
yeah, good example.
About waves.
There, in deep oceans, sea currents, internal waves. You as a diver, without any gear of current, like an oxygen cylinder, you won't be able to observe that. So you need a submarine or some kind of things to go deep down.
What does the Quran
Right.
actually say?
So,
it talks
when
about
the
it in what
Quran
way?
talks about it, how there are
In what way?
waves,
Describe it.
followed by waves, then clouds. So it describes these
So the
deep
Quran talks about
bahrun
waves and
lujji,
clouds.
deep oceans. There are waves which are within the oceans. There are waves within the surface, and they are topped by clouds,
very easy
which is
to
quite
say.
obvious. So it's describing from bottom up.
You're sort
How
of
does the
enforcing
Quran-
that definition on the description.
You can read
That's
about
not what
it.
it said.
This is a well-known example.
Instead
Search
of
the
waves and
internet, you
clouds.
come up with
Oceanic.
hundreds of Muslims explaining like this example.
Yeah, Muslims. So how
and
are
you can look at the
non-Muslims
criticism, no
explaining it
problem.
maybe?
What I'm giving
Well,
as an
more
example,
sense.
it's been discussed by Muslims, non-Muslims, critiquing back and forth.
Which non-Muslim discussed it?
Whether this exists in the text is the question. I say yes, of course. And am I
you're
just
reading
saying
into
it's
the
not in the
text
text? You can check it yourself, linguistically and contextually.
Okay,
it's
sure.
there.
Why not?
If this is the case, examples after examples which requires specific tools of later times to know this information.
But why
then
does it
the
require a tool of a
hypothesis
later
that he's a
time?
genius, he knew and other people knew, it's eventually we're saying, okay, unlikely, improbable. If you come to a point where all your options of goes improbable, the only thing that you're left with is, well, however improbable you think, the only remaining option is.
Can only be true.
So let's leave it there because we have to
Very
go.
interesting.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you very
We
much.
have to leave
I
this up. We have to
appreciate
go and
your
pray.
time.
I must
It
Yeah,
was
pray.
very
I was about to
interesting.
say.
It was
Would you like a Quran as
yeah,
well? We'll
yeah.
walk you out. I'll give you a Quran for free.
It's okay, but I will definitely read it.
Just
I will
one
Really
last
appreciate
statement. The only way you can actually accept truth is if you're
It's by
sincere.
being sincere.
That's it. That's
Yes.
the only way.
If you're sincere, you can accept truth.
Because the whole point is that you're reading
basically
it to
everyone here is
learn.
sincere.
You're not reading it because
But everyone who doesn't accept
No,
it
that's
is
wrong. Not everyone. You're not.
You are.
It's definitely
Let's just
everyone.
continue.
It's definitely
That was
challenging.
nice.
Sorry about the cold. I'm not in control of the
No,
weather.
it's okay.
By the way, you know what it means.
It's interesting. It's challenging.